The King and the Cockerel. Many years ago lived Keith. Keith was a cockerel, a beautiful cockerel. Fantastic chicken, the nicest chicken you could ever wish to meet. His main job every day was to go out into the field and pluck around, scrabble around in the dirt with his feet and his beak and find some tasty morsels for his family, who he loved very much. Now one day Keith was out in the field scrabbling about when he found a coin, bright and shiny, a beautiful coin. He picked it up with his beak and he remarked, "Wow, what an amazing coin! I'll go and show that to the family. They'll love that. It'll be a really nice treat for them." Unfortunately, at that very point, the king was walking past. And this king, well, he was not a very nice king at all. He spotted the coin and he thought, "I'll have that, I believe." And without a please or a thank you, he climbed over the fence, walked right up to Keith and took the coin off him. Silly cockerel. Went back, got back over the fence, and off in his carriage he went. Well, Keith was dumbfounded. What a rotter, he thought. I'd better go and see if I can get that back. Now, the carriage had gone on ahead, and Keith tried to follow as fast as he could, but he only had little chicken's legs, so it took him a while. So, by the time he got to the castle, the king was already sat in his chair with his sleeves rolled up, holding onto the coin, stroking it. Very odd behaviour. When there was a knock at the door. "Guards, open the door." Now the guards didn't like the king so much, but they had to do what he said. So they opened up the door and there was Keith. "Ah!" said Keith. "I'll shriek and squawk with all my might. It's not fair. It's not right. Give me back my coin." "I do not regret my actions," said the king. "I'm keeping this coin. Guards, go and put him in the water tank. Let the silly bird drown." Awful. Well, the guards didn't want to do it, but they had to. Awful bully. So they grabbed hold of Keith, took him to the water tank, opened up the top and stuffed him inside. And one thing I didn't tell you about Keith is he's a very lucky chicken. And what Keith did next is he opened up his beak and gulped down all of the water in the water tank. Meanwhile, back up in the castle, the king was holding on to the coin. So lovely, so shiny. "Oh, I think I'll go and see if that bird's dead yet." What an awful man he was. Stuffed the coin in his pocket and went down to the water tank. Made the guards open up the top, expecting to look inside and see a very wet and deceased Keith. But, boom! Out came Keith, as live as anything, and flew away. The king was amazed. What's happened there? So he had to go and have a sit down to calm himself down. But that's not where we want to end the story, because Keith hasn't got the coin back. So we have to fast forward to the next day, when the king was sat there on his throne stroking the coin again. And there was a knock at the door. "Guards, guards, open the door." So the guards did what they were told. They opened the door, and there was Keith. "Squawk! I'll shriek and squawk with all my might. It's not fair. It's not right. Give me back my coin." "I do not regret my actions," said the king. "Guards, put the silly bird in the oven." The guards didn't want to do it, but when a bully tells someone to do it, very often it happens. So they grabbed hold of poor Keith, took him down into the kitchen and shut him in the oven. They stoked up the fire and left him. Meanwhile, the king was back up on his seat stroking the coin. What a lovely coin. Really, really shiny. That bird must be burnt alive by now. I'll go and see it. Awful thing to do. So the king with his guards went down into the kitchen. But while he'd been upstairs with his coin, Keith, inside the oven, told you he was a lucky chicken, had opened up his mouth, and all that water from the water tank whoosh, went whooshing out and put the fire out. So he'd just been sitting there waiting to be released. And released he was. They opened the door and boom, off flew Keith. Amazing, thought the guards. How did he manage to escape? But we don't end the story there, because poor Keith, he still hasn't got his coin back. So we'll fast forward to the next day, and the king is sat there and he's stroking his coin. He's even giving it a kiss. Very strange behaviour. When there's a knock at the door, guards, open the door. So the guards open up the door, and there's Keith. Squawk! I'll shriek and squawk with all my might. It's not fair. It's not right. Give me back my coin. I do not regret my actions, said the king. Guards, put him in the beehive, expecting that the bees would be quite angry. And you know what angry bees do? Well, the guards didn't want to do it, but that terrible bully, the king, made them do it. So they got hold of Keith and they took him down to the bottom of the garden where the beehives were. They stuffed him inside, and under the king's orders they shook the hive up to make the bees even more angry, and trudged back up to the castle. Keith, meanwhile, told you it was a lucky chicken. The bees were buzzing round and round. What he did, he opened up his big beak and swallowed every single bee, just like that. Meanwhile, the king was sat in his chair, cuddling the coin, dazzling it around, and he thought, oh, do you know, I want to go and see that beehive, where it's all, where that horrible chicken has been stung to bits. I like to see that. Very strange behaviour. So the king and the guards went down to the bottom of the garden, and the king was rubbing his hands, looking forward to seeing poor Keith stung to bits. When they opened up the beehive, no bees came out, just Keith. And he flew away, free as a bird. But we don't end the story there, because poor Keith still hasn't got his coin. So we have to fast forward to the night time. Now the king has had a very full day in his opinion. He's shouted at a few people, he's ordered a few people around, had some very important decisions to make, in his mind anyway. And so, with a sleepy head, he retires to bed. He settles down underneath his pillow. Underneath his pillow? His duvet. With his head on his pillow, with the coin just next to him. See, he hasn't left the coin alone, stroking it as he tries to go to sleep. When there's a tap at the window. Who's that doing a tap, tap, tap on my window? Said the king. It was Keith. Guards! Guards! Quick, come up, open the window! So all the guards come up, they open up the window, and in flies Keith. Squawk! I'll shriek and squawk with all my might. It's not fair. It's not right. Give me back my coin. I do not regret my actions, said the king, and held on tight to the coin. Guards, chop that bird to pieces. The guards didn't want to, but they've been ordered to, so they drew their swords and headed towards Keith. It was at that moment that Keith opened up his mouth and released the bees. Now they've been buzzing inside him all day, and they were furious. They zoomed around the room, swarming about. They stung the guards on the nose. They stung the guards on the shoulders. The king leapt out of bed, got his bedpan and started swatting at them too. They stung him on the ear. They stung him on the elbow. They stung him on the other elbow. I can't take it anymore, said the guards. I can't take it either, said the king. I'd better give back his coin. And so the king gave Keith the coin back. Keith tucked it into his pocket, flew out of the window, and gave the coin to his family. And they loved it. And they loved him. And they loved his story too. Hope you enjoyed it as well.